So today we have a special thing going on. We're going to get some tech information. We're going to find out about what are the good tuners to put on your bike. If you've got a Milwaukee 8, what you should be thinking about. So, hey, who are we going to go talk to?
We're going to talk to Jamie from Speeds Performance Plus.
There you go. Had to get her to say something. So also, don't forget that it's the Pating
Nation
that we're congratulating or welcoming to the club. And if you don't know about the Pating Nation, you need to go to our Facebook page, which is Pating, and you'll see all the great people that belong into that group. And we're just good motorcycle riders that love to share our bikes and pictures and adventures.
Yep. So don't forget to subscribe, share us with your family and friends, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell for notifications, and think about Patreon.
So I want to introduce you to Jamie. If you guys haven't been watching our channel, this is Jamie from Speeds Performance Plus. How long have you been working on bikes?
I've been doing it for 23 years. We started the business in 1998, so we've been on the road quite a while.
Right. So you got a lot of experience. How many bikes do you think you guys have put tuners in?
Oh boy.
Just a wild guess.
I would say thousands. Just leave it at that.
I'd probably think more than thousands.
Quite a few. It's been quite a few. So
yeah. So you got a pretty good experience when it comes to tuners.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we want to talk about today is different styles of tuners for different people's bikes, because I would say not one particular tuner would fit everybody that's out here.
Probably not. No, just depending on budget and what they're trying to do with the bike and things like that.
What's the number one tuner that you sell? What's the one that most people come in and that you install?
Yep. The one we probably do more than anything else is what's called a licensed tune with a power vision. So what we do there, DynoJet actually created a few years ago, which is really cool. They came out with a unit called a power vision. It's a flash unit, so you plug it into the data port of the motorcycle. That allows you to communicate with the ECM, go in and build all your VE tables and adjust all your mapping and timing and all that, and then you re-flash the ECM of the bike, and then you can unplug it if you want from the data port, throw it in your saddlebag or whatever. You can also mount it on your handlebar. They make brackets for that, and then you can have different things on the screens like miles per hour, air, fuel, head temperature. I mean, the list is kind of endless of what you can do with it. We probably do that more than anything else just because of the cost factor. It's a little cheaper the way DynoJet did it with the license. You pay for the license and then you pay for the tune. So then that license stays with that bike for the life of the bike. So if you change things on the bike, say exhaust, cams, or anything like that need to be tuned, you don't have to pay for the license again. You've already paid for it once, then you just pay for the tune each time. So that would probably be our number one unit that we sell. We've also been with DynoJet the longest too, and they make the dyno and all that. So I've got a really good relationship with DynoJet over the years. So one of the things I think it was important to talk about when we talk about tuners is there are different style of tuners. We'll start with you have your first simple base ones are called pod tuners. And basically what they do is they take a fuel injection system and kind of turn it into like a carbureted system where they've got dials on the box, and then you've got 3 circuits that you're working with, kind of like a carburetor does, where you work with a slow jet, usually a needle to have the mid-range, and then a main jet up on the top, and a pod tuner kind of has that same thing. Usually those, though, are pretty limited. That's what we talked about earlier about some of them having limitations because you don't have like a timing table, and then you can only go back to 0. So if you say you're at 0 in a certain area of the bike and it's still rich, you're done. You can't take any more fuel out of that area because you went as far as you could go on the 0. That's the pod tuners. Your next step would be what's called a piggyback unit. That would be like your Power Commander or FP3, something like that, where it plugs into the ECM and then it actually interrupts the signal coming out of the ECM and then changes it based on what you build in the dyno. Those are good units, but you also got some limitations, on that side of it as well. And then after that would be your flash units, which would be like your race tuner, your TTS, the license tuner with the power vision, things like that. Those units, those are different, where you're actually plugging into the data port and actually talking to the ECM and going in and changing V tables and all kinds of different timing tables and things like that. More sophisticated, to do those. And then last would be you're replacing the whole entire ECM with like a Thundermax. Therefore then the the ECM goes out, you put theirs in, and again then you're going in and you got a lot more things you can adjust there with throttle tables and timing and all that. So there are different levels of tuners, and then it kind of goes back to what we had talked earlier about, is there a tuner for everybody that's out there? I mean, yeah, everybody could go all the way and get a Thundermax or get a license tune with a Power Vision or whatever, but they are going to be more expensive. But some of your guys that say maybe they're going to leave the bike stock and maybe just throw on some slip-ons just because they want some different sound, they're going to leave everything else the way it is, they could probably get by with that simpler tuner, that pod tuner, or that FP3 from Vance and Hines or something, and where you can still richen the bike up, you know, a little bit from what it was when it was lean, and help some of the areas. You're going to be limited in some areas, but when all you're doing is minor adjustments to the bike, it would definitely be a cheaper route for them and probably get decent results for them. So,
if I had a bike, let's say I really want to make a fast bike, and I'm going to have you do a bunch of work to it.
Yep.
And we can talk a little bit about what kind of work I'd have to get that type of tuner put in.
yep, so it kind of depends on what you're doing with the bike. I mean, like I was saying earlier, we do a lot of the license tuning with the Power Visions. We also use a unit called a Thundermax. The Thundermax is also a really cool unit because it comes with wideband O2 sensors. And on all these stock bikes, they come with a narrowband O2 sensor. The difference between the two is the narrowband can make adjustments on the fly as you're riding the bike, so all the stock bikes can do that, but it's a very, very minute amount of adjustment that it can make, very small. Whereas the wideband has a lot larger volume that it can change. That's why they're on all the cars and things like that. So it gets more forgiving, or say what we do is we tune the bikes, get the map perfect, and then basically turn on the wideband, so when the customer goes and rides in the mountains, changes elevation, where the motor, maybe you get bad gas, all kinds of different things, it can actually adjust for that on the fly as you're riding the motorcycle. So it's a pretty neat deal. You do change the ECM out with the Thundermax though, which is a little bit different for some people, but Thundermax has got pretty, decent support, stuff like that they do with the units. So.
Now, is there one that you would say you stay away from? Like there's a one, like it comes in on somebody's bike, or you've seen it a lot of times, that you've seen a lot of problems that people have had with them.
I don't know if necessarily problems. I would just say there's a lot of different units out there that are very limited, we'll put it like that, where as a tuner or an engine builder or whatever, it doesn't allow me to do the things I need to do to the bike to get it to run as efficient as possible as I can. So a lot of them type units that they have, I can't actually do what I need to do to the bike, so I either got to remove them from the bike, or depending on if it's a flash unit or not, we can override it with a license tune from a Power Vision, or by removing the ECM, you use the Thundermax.
So looking at Harleys, I know they're getting more and more sophisticated, I guess. When you start changing things on a bike, like putting new mufflers on it and changing, do you really need to go to a tuner at that time?
Yeah, that's a lot of people I think get confused or get misinformation on that. If you get any bike that's a 2010 or up, where it's got the emission stuff and catalytic converters and things like that, if you want to pick up some noise, because we all know they're really quiet from the factory, you could put a set of mufflers on the bike and you don't need to tune it, because the catalytic converter is still up in the front end doing its job. So you wouldn't need to tune it or do anything like that. I actually have had several customers come to me and want them tuned with the emission stuff on the bike, and I just tell them straight up that it's a waste of time to do that, because I can't really adjust much on the bike. I mean, I can make it a little bit richer and make it run a little better, but for the amount of money they're going to spend and do it, I don't think it's...
Because I know in the past I've had it to where they say, oh, you always have to adjust the map.
You do if you do a full system on the bike, say, where then you're removing some of that stuff and getting a really free-flowing exhaust, maybe a really good free-flowing air cleaner. Because basically the Harley motor is a big air pump, so the more air you can get in and get out, the more fuel you can add, the more power the bike can make. But not just power, you're also tuning into efficiency, right? You're trying to get that bike to run as cool as it can, as crisp as it can, best throttle response, just overall smoothness of the bike.
So something else, I know we talked about it, I heard you talking about it yesterday, that somebody had a problem where their bike, you had to get up to like 3,000 RPMs before it had any kind of pickup.
Oh, yep.
So to explain why, what the difference and what makes that happen.
Yep, so that particular customer was just a different arrangement where the shop who had performed the work had put in a camshaft that had a power range on it that was higher in the RPM. That particular camshaft came on about 3,000 to 3,500 RPM and then ran till about 6,000 RPM. And that's actually crucial when that's why it's very crucial when you're building motors or doing cams for customers, that you talk to them first, find out their riding style, what kind of exhaust they have, what kind of bike it is. Because if you get somebody who's more of a, say, Sunday cruiser, a putter that's going to stay under 4,000 RPM, why are you going to go put a camshaft in it that's 3 to 6, right? The guy's not really going to ride there much. So if that guy's more of a putter, you might want to put a low-end cam that maybe makes power off idle to 4 grand because that's where the guy's going to use most of its power. So you got to understand the camshaft, the customer, as well as the exhaust system and what's on the bike. Now you can help some of that by putting like a really good 2-1-1 on a bike. It'll help, you know, get some of that bottom end back, not a ton, but some. Versus if you have a true dual exhaust, then that's more of a mid-range to top end type system, whereas a 2-1 is the best of the best on a Harley. It gives you bottom end, mid-range, and top end. So very, very important when you're putting all those packages together. That's why, you know, shops like us and other performance shops that have been around a long time, you know, they've been doing it long enough where they've built their own packages that they've got, that we know that, hey, this cam works with this pipe, you know, this heads or whatever you're using for a package.
So let's say somebody just bought a new bike, let's say it's a couple years old, a Harley, and he wants to do something to it but doesn't want to spend a lot of money. What's the best way to kind of get a little bit of performance and make the bike maybe run better?
Yeah, I'd say probably the #1 package that we are doing right now on the new Milwaukee 8s is if the customer comes in, we do exhaust, we do a camshaft, make sure you got a good air cleaner, and then a tuner. And it's a fair good amount of money depending on which exhaust system they choose with the bike, but you add a ton of power to the bike. To give you a great example, we did one yesterday. We put a Visani 2-1-1 on a bike, an SNS 475 cam, an Arlen-Ness air cleaner, like kind of like a stage 1, and then did a license with a Power Vision, and we put 39 horsepower on that guy's bike. So that's a pretty substantial gain for the amount of money the customer actually paid. You know, you're getting your biggest bang for your buck. And the newer bikes have 4-valve heads, and they're already 10.5 to 1 compression. So you throw a camshaft in there, and like I said, the pipe, air cleaner, and all that, to add that kind of power. Back in the twin cam days, you'd have to put a complete motor in to get that kind of power. You can't just do that in a camshaft.
So I've also heard that I've heard different problems that they're having with the Milwaukee 8s. Do you see?
Sure, yep, we do. We have seen some problems with it. The earlier ones, the 17s and 18s, we had some sumping issues with that. Harley has since upgraded to a different style pump, and then they added an O-ring on the back of the pump, which seems to help some of that sumping. What we kind of do is any of the earlier bikes that come in, we check every single bike first of all. That's kind of how we do it. We put up on the dyno, and we also pull the plug and make sure there's no lower end. And then we also check all the other fluids, because you can also have a transfer problem, which we noticed where they're pulling it from the transmission over into the primary and filling that. So we usually check all that stuff first, make sure it's not sumping, and then what we also do on the earlier models, the 17s and 18s, is I always recommend putting a pump in, like an SNS or a fueling or something like that, because then you've helped the chances of having less sumping on the bike. But we have seen some of that, we have seen some of the transfer over, and then there's been some other minor things that we have seen, like when you're doing motor work and you get more into the motors.
Well, I want to thank you for your time today.
Yeah.
And if anybody has any questions, we'll put the phone number.
Yep.
We'll put the phone number down there and your email and all that good stuff, so people can ask you any questions. And then maybe we'll do a live here in the next week or so if we can answer any of those questions people may have on this.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So today that was really special. I really like Jamie having a few minutes there to sit down and talk to us here at the rally. And we're actually in Myrtle Beach, and to give you guys some good insight on what's going on. You know, this is the people that they've worked on my bike for, geez, I don't know, about 15 years now. If you want any more information, you can contact them by phone, or you can send an email. And if you guys would like to see or get him back on for a live on one of our lives coming up, let us know down here in the comments, and we'll get Jamie to set up, or even his brother. He may even want to talk.
Yeah, Jason wants to get in on the action.
Yep.
He feels a little left out.
Yeah, he's back at the store there in Rapid City, back there by Sturgis, you know. So, hey, they've both been in the business for a long time. Their dad started this business, and they've been doing rallies for a long time. They pretty much started...
20 plus years.
Yeah, long time. I say it's closer to 28 or 29, but hey, who's counting? So with that, we're going to leave you right here at Myrtle Beach, right in front of Speed's Performance Plus.
So thanks for coming out today. We hope you enjoyed the video and got a lot of good information out of it. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Share us with your family and friends. Think about Patreon. Give us a big thumbs up. Ring that bell for notifications. And we'll see you on the next video.
See you later.